pretty simple scenario. There is a block in the tree, but we're gonna act as if there is no block. We want to try to create a scenario that might be common, whereas a worker is on the spar and chunking things down and might get struck by a log that goes in the wrong direction, or something goes wrong and we have no gear to immediately lower him down. So we're just going to try to make a system that's easy to spike up the tree, do a pickoff, and bring the victim down. The system we put together is pretty simple. It's basically a doubled rope system that you'd see with a friction saver, ring-to-ring friction saver that can form a choke around the spar by adjusting it properly. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this. What we've added in is the rope wrench in order to create that supplemental friction for the two-person load in the system, and you'll see how that works. That's very simple. So this system can operate as a doubled rope system or immediately be converted into SRT. So it's pretty flexible. My thought is that, prevention is the cure. If you've got a small tree crew and you want to have an aerial rescue kit that's already put together, that's a little bit of the idea here. If this were my system, I would dedicate it to aerial rescue. It would be in a labeled bag that it's designated to be aerial rescue only. It doesn't get used for anything else, and anytime you open the bag, everything that you expect to be in there is in there. So essentially, you can open the bag and pull out what you see here, which will just basically be connected to my saddle as I climb up and do the pickoff.
Like Eric said, there's a real large disconnect when it comes to aerial rescues of tree climbers in a tree, where you can't get an aerial device, a ladder truck or whatever, to the climber. And the issue is you're talking about, a piece of steel on the top of a truck that probably weighs, over 57,000 pounds just for the ladder device itself. So that's why, your average fire department is not going to pull a truck off the road. So pretty much the key in all of this is to build a relationship and develop some credibility. So when the fire department shows up on scene, or any of the first responders show up, fire department's real good at putting that yellow tape up and telling you to step on the other side of it, and then they completely disregard anything you have to say. So, hopefully I can give you just a couple real brief pointers on how to establish some credibility with them, and you either still be involved in the rescue or be a subject matter expert for the fire department crew that's there. It's no different than any other emergency that we go to. When we go to an elevator rescue, when the elevator technician shows up on scene, first thing we do is look at the technician and say, how can we help? What do you need us to do? Because we're not experts on elevators, they are. So when they show up to do a rescue of a climber in a tree, and you're talking the average rescue in the United States without a ladder truck is 3.5 hours. So got 3.5 hours that they're trying to muddle through a rescue situation, where normally, we're used to rigging off I-beams and air conditioners and bomb-proof anchors and all this stuff. And then with a tree, the fire department, you're just out of your realm of understanding and predictability of load forces and anchors and secondary anchors. So, ideally, if I get stuck in a tree, I have complete confidence in the fire department that's going to come get me. But who I really want to get me out of the tree is going to be a competent climber, because they're familiar with the systems that I use, the way I climb, everything I've got going up in the tree. They can get me down. Mechanism of injury, when do we take the climber out of the tree and get him on the ground before the first responders get there? There's, in all reality, there's dead in the tree, and there's a better chance of not being dead on the ground. So if it's a life-threatening situation, exactly what the fire department's going to do is we're going to get that individual to the ground and start care. So, something happens, you've got another competent climber up there, start getting up the tree, the fire department shows up, tries to stop your operation, wink, wink, hint, hint, you're already heading up the tree. They're not going to chase you up and pull you down. So, you know, competent climber. So I'll go into a couple of the acronyms you can use. So when the first truck shows up, you can go straight to the person that's in charge. You can establish rapport. You can give them credibility, and hopefully they're going to use you. This information should be up. It's a pretty lengthy PowerPoint. It should be up on treebuzz.com at some point today. So if you guys want to access the PowerPoint and a couple of the articles that I've written for your own knowledge, or you know, whatever, feel free to go on Treebuzz on the homepage and use that information however you want to use it. So what he's going to do is he's not going to use the injured climber's access line. He's got his aerial rescue line with him. So he's just going to go ahead and spike up the tree as quickly as possible to get to the individual that's up there. Your ground crew, the guys that you've got with you, think about preparation. So if there's a lot of debris at the base of the tree, people can start moving stuff out of the way, make a clear path to get the victim out of the area. You know, he's trying to establish communication with the injured climber, pretty much doing an assessment the best he can from the location he's at.
I might not get a response, right? You know, I might get nothing, so yeah, a little bit of communication, right?
So other obstacles, a running chainsaw hanging from his lanyard that he's got to worry about, other communication with the climber, various rigging he's got to muddle through. So some of the considerations that he's talking about is the climber actually pinned up there? Have they been tied up inside their rigging lines? Is there a piece of wood that's pinning them down? How are they hanging? Are their spikes actually in the tree trunk, or are they just suspended from their climbing system? And what parts of the climbing system are still intact? Is the rope intact? Is the flip line intact? Is nothing intact and they're just kind of being held in place by the whatever debris is on them? So basically he's used the climbing system, the rescue system, as a double lanyard system. So he's leapfrogging up, trying to maintain 2 points of attachment, being very careful not to have his safety gear entangled in anything that's entangled the rescuer, looking at any sharp points, pole saws hanging, saws hanging, spikes. Basically knowing the climber that you work with, knowing different systems that your other coworkers work with makes a big difference. It takes the guesswork out of it. He's evaluating what Mac climbs on, what his system is, what parts of it are intact, continuing to do a safety assessment and try to figure out whether this is a pickoff or a rescue situation, you know, whether his system's intact or not. If he can use the victim system, that's great. So the assessment of the climbing system, one of the first things that he does is make sure that climbing system is intact. For the sake of argument for this scenario, the climbing system's not going to be intact. So the second thing he's got to evaluate is where he can safely connect the rescue line, the victim line. So the first place he looks, obviously, because we all connect there anyway, is his bridge. So since his bridge is intact, he can use the victim line, connect to the injured climber's bridge, and use that as a point of attachment for the rescue. So simple ring-to-ring friction saver, set up in a double road system configuration, adjustability on your ring-to-ring to make sure it's not going to slide down the spar. If you're on a spar, you don't have a crotch or a nub to put it over. So he's got it to the lowest possible spot that he can get it on the bridge, because it is a pickoff. So if his system isn't usable but it's still loaded, he's got to be able to get the victim up enough that he can loosen whatever the descent or ascent device is. Same theory with the climber's bridge, low spot. That way you can get as much travel with your body as possible. If you used a chest tether, you know, that's a lot less raise that he can get to get the climber out of his climbing system.
And so, yeah, so as he tightens up his climbing system, which is attached to his belt as normal, it's picking me up out of my system, causing my system to go slack. So now I can
start, but the first thing that I want to do is establish a connection between the two of us that I can adjust.
And that could you know, negate any sort of weight differential if you are massively smaller or larger than the person you're rescuing. As long as you're connected to them, you're both going to come down at the same relative rate, or at least an expected rate.
Before I do anything else here, I might actually want to take his spikes off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So obviously, if assessing the condition of Mac, if he's bleeding out, the first thing after my assessment is I'm gonna apply first aid. That's like going to be mandatory. If I feel that I have some time to package him a little better, then I could do things like take his spikes off to prevent another injury to myself.
Or myself.
Yeah. I lined him up there nicely for you. So now I'm a little less worried about what's going on here with his legs, all right? It doesn't take long to get those off. So now I can start to try to get him around to the other side of the spar. I've got a connection here, and we're tied it together up here. So I can remove his lanyard. I think I want to basically try to slack it out. I know he's left-handed. I know his lanyard is over here on his right hip. So I'm going to get him off his lanyard.
No, good.
So now I've got some options here. I think what I want to do is clean up the connection a little bit. I'm going to pass my lanyard through his bridge. I just want to kind of package him a little bit. All right, now from here I can actually take off that previous connection that I made if that's in the way. All right, so. Are you fetched up on wood?
No, I don't think so.
Really slick, Eric.
So I've got control over the friction of a two-person load thanks to the rope wrench in a doubled rope situation. So I actually have a hand-free, which is helping in my opinion. The more hands-free you have in a rescue situation, the better. All right, so now I think as far as Steve's concerned, let's stop for a second. Let's say the first responders are not here yet.
I think the ground, you know, if all the debris and everything is clear, is pretty much as stable as you're going to get, you know, because if he's unconscious, his head's going to be laying back, his arms are going to be flailed out. Get him flat on the ground, and then he's flat. There's no more movement.
Yeah. All right, so at this height, I think it's safe to take my lanyard off and get that clear. All right, so now we're just completely counterbalanced. This is a seesaw right here. If I stand up, he's going to go down. I have a lot of control here, so I can lower myself a little more and not allow him to move, and then I can begin to stand up and gently put him down on the ground. Or I can stand low, keep my body low, and belay Mac down onto the ground.
You already have the stuff to get somebody out of a tree with that system. You know, like it doesn't have to, but you should have a plan for that scenario, and you should probably practice it at some point, even if it's cobbing together gear or using a block or whatever it is. Like, just practice it, think about it, acknowledge that it's a possibility, and you'll be better off, I think, if it actually happens.
Yeah, so hopefully prevention is the cure. Like, put a kit together, try it out, try working off a Spar, try building your own system, and if you come up with something you really like, dedicate it to a bag, label it, keep it in the truck, make sure everyone's ready to employ that system. So any questions about the technical part of the pickoff at all?